Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wealth Energetics class. Today, we're going to talk about how to navigate your negative emotions. There are specific energetics about your emotions. So we will look at your negative emotion navigation so that you are able to clean up self-sabotage and step into fully the role of a soul-aligned leader in your business so that you can have the life that you desire within your business, because the negative emotions will not have a hold on you. In fact, you will actually figure out how to utilize them for your benefit. So let me know where you're tuning in from. Would love to know in the comments, because we're all around the world. And if you're watching this on replay, hashtag replay, so I know that you're getting it on a second round. So there are two camps of people. One camp of women entrepreneurs is typically the grind and hustle and make it happen kind of people. The other camp is more of intent, say affirmation, pull out an angel card. We know the two types, right? So both types are actual responses or reactions to how we interact with reality. So financial flow into your business and incoming of amazing clients and being able to sell your offers, all of that actually happens from the aligned action. It does not happen from intending alone. The action is actually required, right? So the aligned action is a combination of a specific energy pattern. So since we're talking about the energetics of wealth, let's look at what this actually means. So your emotions fuel your actions, right? We don't just do something because we mentally decided. If we do, we're going against ourselves if our emotions are not in agreement with ourselves. So we actually end up with emotional charge propelling us forward. So emotions fuel your actions. Now, what activates our emotions? Our thoughts. So whichever way we are thinking is then creating this emotional charge, which then fuels our actions. Okay, you're starting to see the pattern here, because what creates the thoughts? They don't just happen to us. Thoughts are created by the stories that we tell ourselves around, like, everything that we're seeing about our reality, essentially. So whatever story that you are telling yourself, which might be your own that you come up with, but most of the time not. Most of the time it's something that we inherit from our family, from the way we were brought up, maybe from the country of origin or the place you're currently part of, the friends, the way that people around you believe, or certain things that they are convinced about, and then we kind of buy into those stories. So it takes actually a lot of internal personal work in order to clean up some of those stories that are not ours, in order to then clean up this entire chain. Right? So I'll start at the beginning again to build that back up for you so you can see how much power we actually have and how much emotions are playing role in that, right? So action is fueled by emotion. And you can see if emotion is on a positive side or on a negative side will fuel your action very differently, right? And the thoughts are what activates your emotions. Emotions do not just happen to us. I hear this all the time from my clients when people say like, oh, but I feel this. I'm kind of like, as if it's just there. It's never there. It's only there because we put it there. So we generate our emotions, and we actually can kind of come into that pattern consciously so we can change it, right? So the thoughts activate our emotions. Our emotions then fuel our actions. Now, adding one more to that pathway, what activates the thoughts? The story. the story of whatever it is that you decided about reality. Whatever it is that you decided about reality is activated by your story. Now, who are you being in that story? That is the key to what kind of an action you will end up with on the other end. Because if the story is disempowering, then the action will also lack power. If the story is confusing, then the action will also be confusing. And emotions are the things that are sort of easiest to grasp, to figure out within this chain. This chain is an energy broadcast. This is how we create our reality, essentially. So as a business entrepreneur woman, you are running a lot of things in your business and you're having a lot of the emotional responses or reactions. So tune into what is the most prevalent response or reaction you're getting emotionally lately. Like when you wake up, what's the first thing that you think about if you think about your business? Is it, I'm so excited, I'm enjoying myself, I can't wait for whatever's coming, sales conversation or presentation or working with your client or writing a post to attract the clients? Or perhaps you are experiencing some other emotion, maybe negative type. For example, maybe you are stressed when you think about your business. Maybe you feel overwhelmed. A lot of times people feel pressure. This pressure of, I have to do something. I don't know quite what to do, but I have to do something. I have to. That generates pressure because there's obligation. So look for what is the emotion. Could it be just being stressed? Is it tension? Is it confusion? Is it overwhelm? Whatever that negative emotion is, it's a really important factor in how you then create an action in your business. So that's the self-sabotage part of what we're talking about with the wealth energetics. In order to be wealthy, we need to navigate our emotions consciously, which means first to become aware what they are and honestly own the fact that that is what we're actually experiencing, even if we're thinking we should be experiencing something else. Okay, so there are in energetics two polarities. The way that we normally look at that would be electric and magnetic. So let me explain what that means. Electric is directional, it's action oriented. So a person who has more of the electric polarity, they will be directionally more like strategy oriented, able to make steps, figure out step-by-step process and go into action where needed. Then the magnetic type of a person, that is somebody who is more in a flow of life if they are harmonious and experiencing connectedness with everything, experiencing how the flow happens within them and they can go deep into feelingly, experientially in whatever's going on. So you can tell kind of what kind of a personality you are. That is actually your soul design. So we come in with a specific polarity. Nobody is just one or another. We all have both, of course, but we have more of one than another naturally. That's just how we're wired. So if somebody is on the electric side or the action-oriented person, in the negative emotion response, they will tend to override it and push through and just kind of move on beyond it by stepping on that emotion. If somebody is more on the magnetic side, on the experiential side, if they encounter negative emotion, a lot of times we end up drowning it. We end up kind of feeling like, oh, this is just so much and so heavy, and then there is a freeze. Like the person can't move, can't act, can't do anything, can't even think sometimes. So that leads to, of course, procrastination and avoidance, right? So those are the two sort of responses that are both incorrect because they are reactions. We are not consciously choosing what we're doing with the negative emotion in that situation. We are simply reacting to whatever it is that's going on. So those reactions, they become the interference patterns. So the key is to use your negative emotion for your business, for yourself, in order to change something, to propel yourself forward, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times we end up doing the opposite. We end up kind of going into fear and backpedaling in the past, referencing as in whatever happened to us before that we're afraid it might happen again, and so on. So hi Juliana, hi Penny Sue, nice to see you still awake at this late hour. I'm in Maine, so it's after 1 in the morning here, but I thought I'll show up and talk because I have something to say, because I was just helping a client on this specific issue as to how we get stuck in a negative emotion instead of actually changing it for our own benefit. So for the ones of you who are meeting me for the first time, I'm Eugenia Oganova. I'm Wealth Energetics Business and Marketing Coach for women entrepreneurs who want to align the energetics of their business so that they can up-level past 6 figures without burnout, so they can create a business that feels like a perfectly matching them outfit, that fits them absolutely like it's just made for them, and they feel so alive and good in their business, that there is no self-sacrifice, and it actually feels joyful and free, while at the same time being profitable. So back to what we're talking about as to how to navigate your negative emotion so that you can clean up the self-sabotage and actually step into that soul-aligned leadership within your business. One of the main components would be to experience whatever that emotion is in your body instead of suppressing it. Because both types, the electric and magnetic personality types, tend to push it aside, tend to kind of say, well, I don't want to have to deal with this, and I will either override it or I will avoid it and ignore it, and neither one is beneficial. So the first thing is always to allow it to show up in you, then recognize what it is honestly and kind of let it be. The next thing you want to do is kind of look for what is the lesson. So every emotion is pointing to a story, just like we looked a little bit earlier in this video, in this lesson. So you always have an emotion because of some sort of a story that you are having. You cannot have a negative emotion without a negative story. Not possible. That's actually a very good news, because we can be in control of our stories that then end up changing our emotion, which then of course fuels our actions differently. Okay, so for example, whatever the story that it's pointing, your negative emotion is pointing to, that story is somehow teaching you something about you, teaching you when you're off, when you're not energetically in alignment. Right? We all tell stories about ourselves. Some are totally awesome and empowering, and we should have more of those. But not all of them are, and a lot of the subconscious stories that we don't even recognize we have half of the time, because we never questioned and stopped and looked at them. Those stories are the interference patterns. And I talked about interference patterns earlier. So in if you're a visual person, imagine that everything is an ocean, and you are directing your energy, let's say, forward. This is where you want to go. You want to write a post that lots of people will respond and become your clients. Or you want to launch a specific offer and you're excited about it and you're letting your energy flow in that direction. You set your intention, everything is awesome. But then subconsciously you have an emotion that says something other than whatever you're intending. If that happens, that emotion also is a wave, just like the one you sent, but it's not going in the same direction. It's going somewhere else. So for example, go sideways like that. Now, what happens when you have two waves, one forward, one sideways? It will interfere with one another. That's what interference pattern is in energetics. It literally diffuses the power of our directional intention. It diffuses the action ability to create what we desire. That's why so many times I see women entrepreneurs working so diligently at creating something and actually doing correct things. Like all the steps are right, the strategy, let's say, is great, but there is no result, and they kind of confused, like, why is this not working? I think I'm doing everything correctly. Well, it's not working because there is an interference pattern that takes the power out of the action. So then the attractor energy is not there. There's nothing to attract to. So I'll explain a little bit more about the story so that it's clearer. For example, the story might be, I have to work hard in order to make money. That's a pretty prevalent story that a lot of women have. Even though we know that, well, there's all this love and ease and flow and it's supposed to be easy, kind of subconsciously, a lot of us don't believe it. A lot of us still believe that actually it has to be pretty hard to make money. And that means that who are you being in that story, right? Like, what character are you playing within that story? Well, the character is, I'm a hard worker. So if you're a hard worker, then how can you have money coming to you with ease? It doesn't work. That's the interference pattern, because you already pre-decided on the negative identity within the story, right? Another example could be, I know I'm an expert in what I do, but I just don't think that they will recognize it. So a person like that will end up having to prove themselves all the time. They will feel like they need to do more, say more, show up more, and somehow there is this subconscious proving because they are within this story, right? The emotion that's driving the action is within the story of, I won't be recognized. Another common one that I have seen is that I will have to give the audience whatever the audience will purchase, instead of doing something that you naturally desire, something that from the being of you wants to come out and be shared with the world, which is more of like what you actually meant to do as your purpose in life. Instead, a lot of women kind of settle for less. They go for, well, I want to do this, but kind of like nobody's going to buy that. So instead, I'm going to go for this, which I know is a sure thing. But the problem is that that sure thing is actually feels like tension and pressure and obligation. And again, it's actually ends up being a lot of work without as much result. Another common story is that they need help. All my audience, all my clients, they need so much help, and I'm here to help them. You can imagine what would be the role a person like that is playing, right? They are overgiving, they probably undercharging, they constantly showing up with this kind of a bleeding heart and no boundary and just giving, 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 but they don't have a container to receive. So that also creates hardship. So those are all negative emotions that then act as interference patterns. Okay, so if you have an interference pattern in your business, it just feels hard. Like a lot of times we actually hate our businesses in those moments because it feels so hard. But it's not because the business is hard. Business is meant to be joyful and exciting, especially entrepreneurship. But it's crazy and difficult at times and definitely challenging, but it's meant to be exciting. And when it's not, it's because we are bugged by all those lower frequencies, all those interference patterns that we ourselves have generated. So it's so important that, you need to kind of expand your energy. Anytime you start to expand your energy in your business to the next level or whatever, you're going to hit some challenges. That's okay. But if we ignore the discomfort of that, if we try to override, then we actually build what we're building on a shaky foundation. And we want to be able to build the next level of where we're going on a foundation that feels incredibly certain, incredibly solid. And that means that emotionally, we will need to be driven in an aligned way. All right? So look at the story that you're choosing to be a part of in your life. Is it something in the area you live in? Is it something your family programmed you with? Is this something you yourself just somehow subconsciously decided and never challenged? What is that story, and does it serve you? Whatever it is you believe about life, about your business, about you in your business, does this serve you? Are you a soul-aligned leader in that story? Is that the character you're playing? Or are you playing something else? there's always a level of discomfort. It's normal, and we're meant to actually allow ourselves to experience it without judgment. That's the key. So how do we clean up those interference patterns, right? So I've talked so much about what they are, so now you understand them. There are 4 things in order to do so. So one is, of course, to realize what you are actually feeling and give it space within yourself without judgment. As easy as this sounds, this is actually the step that most people skip. They kind of go into like, well, I know I should think of it differently, or I know better, so this is just like, I know I should be here. But that still ignored the emotion that we were actually having. So you want to experience that emotion, find it. Where is it in my body? Is it in my belly? Is it in my heart? Do I feel it on my shoulders? Does it feel like something heavy sitting on me? Is it something that I feel kind of restricted by? Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, but imagine that, allow it to sort of be somewhere in you so that you can just hold it without judgment. You're observing it. So that's a step 1. Step 2, look at the story that generated that emotion. Where did this emotion come from? What would you have to tell yourself in order to feel the way you're feeling? That's kind of the question you want to ask yourself. So once you got that, once you understood like, oh, this is the story I'm running here right now. Look at, this is the 3 part, who am I inside that story? What is the role that I'm playing? What kind of character am I? Am I the heroine of the story? Am I empowered, or am I weak, confused, lost, unsure? And mind you, this is like, you can be super successful in your business, and every time you up level, every time something new happens and you challenge yourself, you're going to experience some of those emotions. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is a constant thing that you feel. I'm saying that this is something that we have to really be honest with ourselves if we want to move our business kind of beyond the typical like 6-figure mark, the coveted 6-figure mark. But when we move beyond that, we actually need to clean this up, because it's not possible to build the next level without a proper foundation. So, okay, so the step 3 is, what kind of a character are you within the story that you bought into for whatever reason? Okay, and the number 4, who do you want to be instead? How does this person feel? How does she feel? How does she think? How does she act? What does she do in her business? You know, how is her expression showing up versus the one that you were having? So that 4th piece is really important, because if we fully embody that, we actually transmute the negative emotion. We don't override it, we don't suppress it, we transmute it. Okay, so this is a sure way to avoid burnout. You know, all the burnout happens because we have interference patterns that we override all the time. So if you want to not burn out in your business past the 6 figures, going further, well, the only way to do that is to consciously deal with those interference patterns, which is this 4-step process. And there's always some fear, there's always some anxiety. This is just normal. This is what happens. But when we take action from that place, that's not beneficial. Same thing if we avoid and procrastinate and kind of trick ourselves saying like, well, I'm just waiting for the right timing, or I just don't know. That's not beneficial either, because you internally know you're not in alignment. Women are incredibly intuitive beings. We know when we're kind of tricking ourselves. So this is how you can clean this up. And mastering the ability to hold your emotion, the step 1, without judgment, that is incredible. That's like a key to the universe, because you can experience anything because you're not attached to it. You're not afraid. You're not needing it. You're not in any way dependent on whatever it is that you're experiencing. You decided and you went with it. So you are actually free, like to have that freedom everybody wants. That's how you have the freedom, by having ability to hold your negative emotion without judgment, and then move on to the other 3 steps. So to summarize everything that I was talking about today, in order to become a soul-aligned leader within your business, we need to do those 4 things when we encounter negative emotion. Okay, so number 1, give it space without judgment. Number 2, find a story that is the origin of that emotion. Number 3, find the character you are playing in that story so that you know who are you being within the story. And number 4, change the story. What do you want instead? Become the thing that you want instead. All right. So the next thing for you to do right now is to join my Wealth Energetics for Women Entrepreneurs group. It's a free Facebook group where I post videos every week, and there's a lot of practical strategies, energetics for your business strategy, for marketing strategy, for sales, for how you handle your emotions, just energy dynamics overall in your business, boundaries with you and your team, and how you up leveling to the next level without burnout, without sacrificing who you actually are, so that instead you create the business that feels true to who you are, that you feel aligned with. So make sure that you find the link in the description of this video and click that link. It will take you straight to the group, answer the questions, and I will let you in. So there you have it. That's how you navigate your negative emotions, make them work for you so that you can become a soul-aligned leader in your business. All right, so click that link if you're not a member of my Wealth Energetics for Women Entrepreneurs group yet. I would love to see you there. Bye-bye.